refugee camp in northeastern Zaire. Weary from a year under canvas, 750,000 Rwandan Hutu exiles are faced with life on a lava wasteland. A desperate population is nestled on the very edge of Virunga, Africa's oldest national park. This appalling humanitarian crisis is now on the verge of becoming one of the continent's most tragic ecological disasters. Isolated high up on a volcano, overlooking the brooding intent in the valley below, lives one of the world's rarest and most endangered large mammals, the mountain gorilla. The Virunga volcanoes rise up out of the heart of a deeply troubled continent to a height of over 4,500 meters. Towering above the active, more recent cones in the west is the ancient cloud-capped peak of Mikeno. Over thousands of years, extensive forests have contracted, forming what is now the mountain gorilla's high-altitude home. In Zaire 8 years ago, long before the human crisis began in the valleys below, a mature 22-year-old silverback gorilla called Ndungutse inherited leadership of a family from his father. A distinctive spray of white hair grows across his back, first appearing at about the age of 12. It's a hallmark of maturity. All other members of the group are black. He has a bump at the top of his head where powerful jaw muscles are attached. For 3 months, Ndungutse's 2 younger brothers have been keeping their ailing father company, gradually losing contact with the main group as they've fallen further and further behind. There is something here that's upsetting the 2 brothers. This is Rafiki, the eldest of the 2. He has been calling continuously, displaying on and off for days. Their father has died from old age in the cold of a Virunga night. Fastidious about keeping themselves and each other clean, the younger brother, Luawa, moves in to attend his father by grooming his fur. Thousands of flies attracted to the body lying in the warm dampness of the forest floor have laid eggs. In a curious piece of behavior, Luawa eats what he begins to uncover. For hours he cleans the fur, eating as many of the eggs as he can find. During the weeks that the old silverback took to die, the brothers have not eaten properly. Primarily vegetarian and finding themselves confined to one small part of the forest, they've consumed most of what is edible. They now desperately need to move on in order to feed. The bond forged over years of close association makes it difficult for the brothers to leave their father. They have known no other leader and continue to remain near the body for a while longer. Rafiki, at the age of 11, is on the verge of sexual maturity, a time when he will strike out to lead a life on his own. The brothers quickly distance themselves from the corpse and move into a new part of the forest. Luawa is 4 years younger than Rafiki, and at this stage of his life is less inclined to want to lead a solitary existence, preferring instead to stick with his older, more experienced brother. For the first time in a fortnight, the pair are in an area where there's plenty of food. Gorillas spend over a third of each day eating, a large male consuming about 18 kilos of vegetable matter. The brothers eat over 50 species of plant at different times during their travels through the forest. Many are astringent to the human palate, and others, like this bracket fungus, are eaten only occasionally. Tired and replete for the first time in days, the pair settle down to rest several kilometers from their father's remains. The Zairian park authorities closely monitor the gorillas in this part of their range. With only an estimated 620 mountain gorillas left in the world, each body recovered for examination yields valuable information on a subspecies that was only discovered this century. In the 12 weeks it took their father to die, the pair have lost all contact with their elder brother, Ndungutse. He has taken the group far off, up the slopes of Mikeno. Rafiki and Luawa range through the forests on their own. For the first time in their lives, they are making important decisions that were previously the exclusive preserve of the leading silverback male. Farmers ignore the buffer zone on the edge of the Virunga Park and cultivate to within sight of the forest. The brothers have been tempted on several days in a row to leave the comparative safety of the forest so that they can raid a neighboring banana plantation. Introduced into tropical Africa in prehistoric times, the banana plant is an important and valued food in Central Africa. Although gorillas eat this plant's forest cousin, it does not bear the distinctive fruit with which we are so familiar. The gorillas eat only the pith found at the center of the trunk, ignoring the bananas that are frequently brought down during the raid. The juicy pith is rich in sap. Gorillas seldom drink and obtain all their moisture requirements from the vegetation that they eat. For many young Zairians helping their parents farm small parcels of land, this is their first encounter with a living gorilla. The national park and its wildlife are strictly off limits, and they're unlikely to come face to face with wild animals. Understandably, many Zairians harbor deep resentment against the wild animals that raid their plots. With such tempting crops growing so close to the forest edge, who can blame such intelligent creatures for taking advantage of the situation? They have been so busy feeding, the pair will have even more difficulty finding their older brother's group. Far away, the youngsters in Ndungutse's family are taking advantage of the mid-morning siesta period to play. Like their human counterparts, they find it difficult to remain quiet for very long. Although the adult group members will take this opportunity to rest, Ndungutse is keenly aware of all that's happening and will intervene if play becomes too boisterous. The focal point of every gorilla family is the dominant silverback male. He is the sole decision maker. Each female is bonded to him directly, and he's usually the father of all their offspring. Close by Ndungutse's group lives a fourth brother, a 19-year-old silverback called Salama. He maintains a healthy distance from his older brother by trailing the family wherever they go. Although he lives on the edge, he's familiar to all group members, and during the regular siesta periods, he often plays with one particular infant, belonging to a female with whom he has a very close bond. Salama, concealed from his brother's prying eyes, mates with her. He is invited to copulate during the 2 days of her estrus, and this cements her association with him. By maintaining contact with both silverbacks and allowing them to mate with her, she can successfully fool the two into believing that they are in turn the rightful father of the infant that she carries. This strategy puts her in the unique position of being able to pick and choose between the two brothers when it suits her. All gorillas have large pot bellies. Bacteria in the gut help to break down all the vegetable matter needed to satisfy their daily energy requirements. A byproduct of all this activity is gas, huge quantities of it. As a result, all family members are in a semi-permanent state of flatulence. Gorillas have been known to do something very strange at certain times. They will eat their own dung for no apparent reason. Whether this unusual behavior is an attempt to recycle a particularly nutritious food source or is simply a hot meal on a cold day has yet to be determined. Since their father's death, Luawa and Rafiki have not re-established contact with Undungutse's group. He has moved too far up the slopes of Mikeno. This imposed early separation from the family helps to build confidence. Wandering through the forests prepares the pair for the eventual day that they will be group leaders in their own right. Its quiet contemplation interrupted, a fledgling eagle owl is suddenly aware that the world outside its nest can be terrifyingly large. It hasn't learned to fly properly yet, and it's not often that Rafiki can get this close to an animal. Luawa is less interested at first. His natural sense of curiosity, sparked by the unique nature of the situation, draws Rafiki into wanting to provoke a response. Overwhelmed by one boisterous brother, the owl finds the close attention of the other too intimidating and quickly learns what wings are for. The lush green forests around Mikeno are lapped by a rising tide of human cultivation, which threatens to engulf the island-like home of the mountain gorilla at any time. The Virunga volcanoes straddle the Central African republics of Zaire, Rwanda, and Uganda. Ancient legends tell how the ghosts of the dead still dwell in the depths of these fiery furnaces, stirring their innermost flames. It was from here that rumors reached the first early explorers that there lived an ape on these smoking mountains. With frequent eruptions spilling out over this hostile land, forests come and go, But gorillas are not found in this active area. They roam the quieter, cooler slopes of the dormant volcanoes just 6 kilometers to the east. Totally lacking in water and protected by the boundaries of the Virunga Park, people cannot live on these old lava flows. In July 1994, some of the 2 million Hutu refugees fleeing retaliation after the ethnic bloodshed in neighboring Rwanda streamed into Zaire in a matter of days. Aid organizations were forced to establish tented camps on the old lava fields next to the park after 40,000 people died from disease and exhaustion. Their most basic needs for water, food and medicine are taken care of, but to cook and keep warm at night, the refugees must turn to the forests. For over a year, the equivalent of 7 soccer fields of forest have been completely erased each day. Ndungutse has been leading his family for 8 years now, and they're oblivious to the tragedy unfolding in the valley below. His status as leader is under increasing threat from his younger brother, Salama, who yawns with tension as he closes in to test his position. This triggers one of the most complex and ritualized displays seen between mammals. The brothers can amplify the sound of the display by puffing up 2 prominent air sacs located at the side of the throat. A stale, human sweat-like odor permeates the air. An excited silverback will emit this smell from special glands in his armpits. The brothers are displaying more frequently now. There's a distinct possibility that Salama will make a final bid to wrench control of the group from Ndungutse. For the moment, the showdown subsides, allowing Salama's favorite female to approach. Still tense from the interaction, he rebuffs her intimate gesture, but she continues to remain nearby. If Salama can successfully take over the group, she might become a high-ranking female. In the rainy season, when the Ndungutse family are roaming through Mikeno's lush forested slopes, they pay particular attention to the moist leaf litter underfoot. Attracted by some telltale sign, Salama begins to dig, breaking his way into the inner sanctum of one of the forest's most voracious and numerous insects. Army ants nest here in their millions. Gorillas have developed a taste for the plentiful supply of eggs and larvae that appear during the wet months, and they will go to extraordinary lengths to get at this protein-rich food source. Armed with one of the most potent bites in the business, the infuriated ants retaliate en masse. Using powerful mandibles, they quickly succeed in driving even the largest gorilla away after a very short time. With the dominant animal out of sight, the whole family can then participate in the pleasure of this feast, taking only what their pain threshold will allow. The brief periods of raiding lead to hours of patient grooming. Despite the very thick fur that mountain gorillas have evolved to protect their skin from the harsh elements, it's no safeguard against thousands of painful bites. The remnant army is forced into a hasty retreat. Each ant burdened with a young member of the colony, salvaged in order to secure their future existence. "42,000 refugees remove over 900 tons of wood a day, vital for their survival. With more and more refugees collecting forest materials, armed poachers are able to penetrate the heart of the forest undetected in their search for food. Over half of the bamboo stands on Mikeno have gone, chopped down and taken into the refugee camps as a construction material. Some of the bamboo is used in the forest by skilled hunters. Its flexibility, when freshly cut, allows the fashioning of a primitive but deadly antelope trap. Carefully positioned on a quiet forest trail, the mechanism is set in the new home range of Ndungutse's younger brother, Luawa. He has changed a great deal in the 7 years that have passed since he was last seen eating fly eggs from his father's dead body. He is now a fully mature silverback with a family of his own. His group is attracted by the discovery of a black-fronted duiker in a triggered bamboo snare. Youthful curiosity gives way to adult concern as the mature members of the family display in agitation. The forests are heavily infiltrated by people now, and almost impossible to police effectively. It's hardly surprising that Luawa's family is encountering at least one primed trap each day as he leads the group through his threatened kingdom. With so many traps set in the forest, Luawa has taken to patiently waiting near each mechanism they encounter. Vegetation often obscures visual contact with some of the younger, more inexperienced group members. What happens next is quite extraordinary. Luawa breaks the trap. In his short time as a family leader, he's encountered so many of these snares that he's learnt how to destroy them. The enormous pressures that now bear down on the brothers can have only one consequence. In the chill of a forest morning 3 weeks after he had suddenly disappeared, Salama's remains are found on a well-used poacher trail. The female with whom Salama had a close bond has moved on with Ndungutse's family, unaware of the tragedy that has befallen this silverback. She continues to maintain an even lonelier existence on the edge of the group. Ndungutse has lost a rival, and for the time being, his position as family leader will remain unchallenged. This is not a good time for guerrillas. One infant has experienced the harsh reality of life on this volcano. He was caught in a poacher's trap and in breaking free lost his hand to the tight grip of a wire snare. Very lucky to survive, he manages despite the mutilation. There are parts of Mikeno where its volcanic rocky core is exposed to the elements. 2 or 3 times a year, when Ndungutse is in the vicinity, he suddenly breaks away from his routine. He climbs with purpose, using trails and markers familiar only to him and those guerrillas that have done this journey before. The entire family climb the precipitous sides of the volcano in order to reach a very special place. There's nowhere else quite like this in the entire 14 square kilometer expanse that they regularly frequent. Finally, all the exertion pays off, and the guerrillas find what they're looking for. With so much erosion and leaching over time, minerals concentrate here, forming high-altitude salt licks. Some of the rock contains sodium and potassium, and periodically the gorillas eat huge quantities of it. Searching the cliffs requires nimble footwork. With its weathered face crumbling, it's a steep and dangerous place. It's not known for certain whether this behavior allows the gorillas to obtain essential elements lacking in their vegetarian diet, or if the rock simply helps to neutralize the action of toxins that may build up after intensive feeding on some plants. These caves have been visited for countless generations, the exact location passed down through the years from one animal to another. Weighing close to 180 kilos and twice the weight of a female, the descent requires some sure-footed judgment for a departing, ponderous male. Each day, people penetrate deeper into the park. Now there's nowhere in the forest where the gorillas are completely safe. Over 100,000 Hutus, fearing for their lives in Rwanda, use the park to cloak their escape into Zaire. The extensive network of forest trails quickly take the refugees into gorilla country. For the gorillas, the caves at the heart of Undungutse's territory are out of bounds now, as tired Rwandan families seek temporary shelter on their weary exodus from a country at war. With so many people in the park, effective policing is even more difficult now. On a dawn patrol, park guards find that a terrible thing has happened to one of Ndungutse's infants. She's caught in the deadly embrace of a sprung trap. The rope is strong, fashioned from nylon fibers, removed from food aid sacks that deliver sustenance to the masses in the valley below. For more than a day and a night, she has struggled to escape, and all Ndungutse's attempts at breaking the trap have failed. He jealously guards his baby, making it impossible for the park staff to get close to release her. Other family members are just as disturbed and frustrated by the drama of the last 24 hours. rope bites deeper and restricts blood flow to the infant's hand. The distress calls repeatedly bring the weary mother in to comfort her offspring. Ndungutse cannot stay here too long. He must take the group away to feed. The mother will have to follow, and if she leaves, her baby will die. For now, the infant suckles, drawing much needed comfort and warmth from the animal that it most needs in its life. Family members are drawn in to investigate the trap, examining carefully what it is that keeps the youngster rooted to one spot. A fresh, springy green sapling was used to make this device, and all Ndungutse's efforts at snapping it have failed. While Ndungutse is out of sight, with only a young male nearby, the baby gorilla is cut free. With more people in the park than ever before, a confrontation is inevitable. Man and gorilla will meet head-on. A showdown that will have far-reaching consequences. Luawa, who broke the trap protecting his family, is mercilessly gunned down on the high slopes of Mikeno, leaving a traumatized group running scared. For the park authorities, Luawa's death is devastating news, and a great effort is made to remove his remains for expert examination, in the hope that some telltale sign might identify his killers. Human hands, dwarfed by those of the giant, slowly maneuver the tremendous dead weight and gently lower the silverback onto a makeshift litter. Fresh ferns are collected and carefully laid on his chest to keep the flies away. And in ritual-like solemnity, this once magnificent animal is prepared for his final journey off the volcano. Carrying Luawa to the park headquarters will take 12 men more than 15 hours. Ironic that he was first named for his ability to travel quickly through the forest. For several years, Luawa covered huge distances looking for a suitable home range for his new family. He was called by the locals the gorilla that moves far and wide without ever touching the ground. This is a dark chapter in the history of mountain gorilla conservation. A year when 8 gorillas are killed, the first slayings in over a decade. The majority of bullets belong to a commonly used weapon. Since the Rwandan Civil War, the AK-47 is easily purchased in Zaire. Like some giant earth tremor, the killings ripple outwards from Mikeno, engulfing other gorilla families too. Less than 20 kilometers away, another silverback and female have been gunned down while defending the youngest member of their family. This is the only shooting with an established motive. The kidnapped infant has been successfully recovered from poachers. No one can look after him, and if he's not returned to the group soon, he will die. There is no male old enough to succeed his dead father. If no new silverback in the vicinity takes over, then the family may be doomed to slowly fragment and decline. For the moment, his family roam the forest leaderless, disorientated, and terrified of people. This new fear of man may be their key to survival, but it makes it very difficult for the trackers to return the infant to the group. When the team get as close as possible, they can only hope that he will wander towards the noise. He is gone, whisked away by a rapidly departing female. Luawa's older brother, Rafiki, was last seen on the dangerous Zaire-Rwanda border. With all the tragedies in the region so far, it seems impossible that he could have escaped the slaughter. It's 8 years since his playful encounter with the owl, and he's not seen a cameraman since that time so long ago. This can only be Rafiki, the friendly one, as his name implies. At last, with a home range of his own, he has been able to establish a family, a small one with a couple of young infants and some very nervous females. Rafiki is drawn in close to the camera, captivated by his own reflection in the lens. It's been a long time since he was last exposed to anything like this, and in a moving display of trust, he allows his young infant to share the experience with him. For all the gorillas killed so far, it's their lack of fear that has put them at risk from man. Ironically, here in the Virungas, the gorillas' only hope for long-term survival lies in trusting their distant human relative. The gorillas have to pay their way, prove that they're worthy overlords of the forests that they roam. With such enormous human pressures on potential agricultural land, wildlife must generate an income. Visitors and scientists pay to get close to the gorillas, and this is the only way that such a highly prized tract of Central Africa can be preserved. Without this incentive, the gorillas around Mikeno would have vanished a long time ago. It's a tragedy that our objectives and priorities have been so narrowly focused on the human disaster in the valley below, leaving the gorilla families out in the cold. If the refugee crisis is not resolved soon, the future will not be bright for Rafiki.
Mountain gorilla. Where it comes from, people used to celebrate a land of fiery beauty, of dramatic natural riches and ancient traditions. But recently, its home has been wrecked by poverty and war. When Rwanda suffers, the mountain gorilla suffers too. But there is hope. Maybe, just maybe, the mountain gorilla can help. They call it the land of 1,000 hills. Near here is the place where humans first walked the earth. Rwanda is the heart of Africa. On its border with Uganda and what was at the time of this story Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, are the Virunga Mountains. This is the Rwanda that hit the headlines when civil war broke out in 1994. A country of genocide, refugees, terror and loss. But Romain Bartsoon, a Belgian diplomat, knew another Rwanda, a country of peace, beauty, warm friendship, and irresistible challenges. When he first arrived back in 1966, Romain thought he would stay only 3 years. So he wasted no time and set about exploring the volcanoes with his wife Arlette and daughter Anne. First, the 2 active ones just over the Zaire border. A keen cameraman, Romain hauled his heavy equipment up every single peak. Little did he realize what precious footage that camera would record. For Romain was destined to document intimately 2 of Rwanda's most closely guarded secrets. The first, a group of tribal people whom even so late in the 20th century, very few outsiders had ever met. The Bahima. Romain was the first to film them. Neither he nor they could know then that he would also be the last. But it was to the Virunga Mountains that Romain first turned for adventure. Having visited the active volcanoes, Romain then organized treks to explore the thick cloud forests on the slopes of Rwanda's 6 dormant volcanoes. Once above 6,000 feet, he and the porters would occasionally catch a tantalizing glimpse of one of the shy giants that lived there. At the time, Diane Fossey, who inspired the film Gorillas in the Mist, had barely begun her fieldwork. Otherwise, very few people had ever ventured into the jungle in search of the gorillas. Never mind attempted to film them. So Romain became something of a self-taught expert.
If you want to approach the gorillas and you want to have an open contact, you must announce your presence before you arrived to the gorillas. And the best way to do that is to imitate some contentment vocalizations, like if you do that, that means that at that moment also the gorillas do that in the group. When they are kind to each other, when they are not afraid, when they are happy, when they are lying in the sun.
Romain wasn't always this knowledgeable. When he began his quest to film gorillas, there was precious little information available, and he inevitably made mistakes. And mistakes may force the dominant male, the silverback, to charge.
When I met for the first time a mountain gorilla, it was a small baby. So I thought by myself, oh, it looks so nice, so why must I be afraid? Suddenly, when the female arrived, Yeah, when the female arrives, it's already more bigger because a female it's around 200 pounds. So we were not at our ease. But I must say that the first time that you meet gorillas, you feel really not good. They look so powerful, especially the silverbacks, because a silverback weighs around 400 pounds. So if he wants, he can do everything with you. And we must not forget that, in fact, they are always wild animals.
And of all wild animals, the silverback demands respect. If he doesn't get it, if he feels the safety of his family is at risk in any way, he must react, as Romain found out for himself when he somehow upset the mighty silverback Ndume.
Silverback charged me when I start filming.
Romain knew that running away would only provoke Ndume further.
But in fact, the most important thing is not to move. I have never got real problems. Sometimes, yeah, he gives you a small clap, or he can touch your arm, or he can hit you. So all these things are normal. And in fact, we were always lucky, because you can understand gorilla, so powerful animal, if he really want to hit you, or if really he want to take you, or to catch you, yeah, at that moment, or to beat you, at that moment it can become really very, very terrible. But at that moment, if a silverback charges, the first thing to do is to stay very calm and to lie on the ground and to show to him that he is the leader. You must not forget that when gorillas start charging, that in fact, I think 90% it's only bluff.
As long as there was no doubt about who was in charge, the guerrillas accepted Romain, and they could all relax. Romain knew his place, literally.
In the relationship with the gorilla, it's better never to take the position to stand upright, because it means to have a dominant position. It means that you start considering the gorilla as a lower animal. It's better to take the seated position, that you are at the same eye level. If you do that, you cannot have any problem.
Once he was confident enough, Romain took friends with him, passing on his top tips. Keep low, don't stare back, don't run, and act submissive. These days, gorilla watching is a popular treat for tourists. But in the past, it was almost unheard of. The world was only just beginning to get to know mountain gorillas, and the gorillas were just beginning to get to know people. The best way to earn the gorillas' trust is to mirror their behavior, except for one thing: chest beating.
If you want to imitate chest beating, it becomes really very dangerous. Because chest beating for the gorilla, it's a signal of alarm. So if you start to do that, all the gorillas will be surprised why you are doing that. If something wrong with you, or if something wrong with the others.
Romain's patience was paying off. After months of watching, waiting, and learning, he was now able to film the gorillas at their most intimate, their most relaxed. The extent to which they trusted him became clear when one day something extraordinary happened.
When the female arrived and take me a little bit in her arms. So that was the first time, and that never happens again. Only one time in 15 years that I filmed the mountain gorillas. It happened only one time that a female took me in her arms like that. Yeah, it was for me one of the most fantastic things that ever happened in my life, and I can never forget that feeling, because it was really so natural. Of course, I am also very happy after, when I saw the film and when I saw the pictures, that I didn't touch the gorilla and that I didn't do the same with her. You know, when you are in the wild like that, you are not in a circus, and you have to respect the basic rules of wildlife. But I can never forget these feelings, because that female really considered me like her brother, so nice. And she could even do anything with me, because also a female like that, 15 years old, is already very powerful. And also, you must not forget, even if sometimes gorillas are very kind, they are always wild animals. The first thing that came up in my mind was, at that moment, the silverback could charge us.
In gorilla groups, the single mature silverback tolerates only immature males called blackbacks near his females. Other silverbacks are seen as a threat. Romain had no idea how the silverback, ever vigilant, would react.
The silverback cannot know anything about me, because I am not, of course, a blackback, I am a human. So at that moment, anything was possible. And yes, it's quite possible that the silverback could become jealous and could charge me. Yes, why not?
But the silverback chose to ignore him, and so too, eventually, did she.
But at that moment, the relationship was already very, very, very nice with the silverback. And I think the silverback considers us as one of the family.
From knowing nothing about the mountain gorillas, other than that they existed, Romain became one of the first people ever to get close-up footage of this greatest of the great apes. He filmed every aspect of mountain gorilla life, from rest to play. As recently as the 19th century, gorillas were believed to leap down from trees and throttle people with their bare hands. Was this gentle ape really the inspiration for the film King Kong? Gorilla games, like children's games, have agreed rules. But rules can be broken, by lowering a branch, for example. The first biologist who tried to study them in the wild locked himself into a cage in the forest, so fearsome was the gorilla's reputation. Gorillas have got better things to do than tear men limb from limb, like napping. Or entertaining themselves. This youngster seems lost in a fantasy world all her own. But her long-suffering playmate just wants time out. Playing with others is much more fun. The wide, open-mouthed play face shows they mean no harm, which is crucial when spirits get high and gentle wrestling escalates into rough and tumble. Few filmmakers have the privilege of shots like these. Their padded feet and hands are too soft to slice through plant stems, so the trampled vegetation doesn't suffer any long-term damage. Unlike the huge, heavy adults who spend most of their time on the ground, youngsters are light and agile enough to climb trees to feed and play. As far as they're concerned, they live in one vast, mossy gymnasium. Complete with grassy crash mats to cushion the tumbles. Being a gorilla is about being with other gorillas. Their social groups are more stable than those of the other great apes. Unlike chimpanzees and orangutans, gorillas may stay together for many years. The 200 or so different species of plants on which the gorillas feed, including vines, wild celery, thistles, fruits, ferns and bamboo shoots, grow thickly here, thanks to the rich, fertile soil, mixed with ash left by the long-since extinguished Virunga volcanoes. Six volcanoes, Mikeno, Karisimbi, Visoki, Sabinyo, Gahinga and Muhabura, lie on the Rwandan side of the Virunga chain. But these ancient giants, the highest nearly 15,000 feet, are merely dozing, one eye half open. Quiet for now, they may wake again with fresh fire in their bellies. Barely 5 miles away in Congo, younger volcanoes still smolder and spit. When one erupted in 1977, Romain took his camera as close to its bleeding core as he dared. As the molten lava seeps down the volcano's flanks, it crusts over to form a brand new landscape. As soon as the sulfurous furnace cools, plants race to colonize the soil. Hot on the heels of the flora comes the fauna, such as the colobus monkey. It was volcanic upheaval some 2 million years ago that filled the Akagera Depression in the northwest with water. Cooling lava created gigantic natural dams, forcing rivers to overflow into floodplains, many of which are now filled in with sediment. Today, the Akagera forms Rwanda's biggest national park, covering 1/10 of the country's surface about 965 square miles. And wherever vast herds of vegetarians gather, so too do the carnivores. There are more buffaloes in Akagera than any other large mammal. And there's a lot of meat on a well-grazed buffalo. A calf, or perhaps a weak adult, might be easy pickings. The bull, though, is heavily armed. Those magnificent dagger-like horns could gore a lion to death with a single swipe. Job well done. The male rejoins the harem. Nearby, his distant domestic relatives also enjoy special protection by human bodyguards. Though a disgruntled hippo poses little threat. The Bahima people live in exactly the same way as their ancestors have done for centuries. They get everything they need from a single, mobile, renewable, and environmentally friendly source. Their cattle. Fiercely independent, the Bahima have long resisted authority and state control, shunning contact with the modern world. It took Romain a long time to befriend them, as he recalls.
The first time when we visited, you could not go there by road, or it was very difficult to find them. Of course, the Rwandan television and the Rwandan radio, they tried to have contacts with them, but they always refused because they were not interested in money. If you only want to drink milk and to drink blood and you are wearing the skins of your own cows, you don't need money.
Like all other pastoral people in East Africa, including the Maasai, the Bahima are attuned to the rhythms of their cattle. At first, Romain was allowed to film only the young herders. Neither Romain nor his Bahima friends could possibly anticipate that these scenes would soon become material for the anthropology archives. At the time, Rwanda was as peaceful as the Akagera River, source of the White Nile. The Bahima don't eat fish, so the fishermen have the extensive waterways to themselves. Though they sometimes hunt larger animals such as hippos, the Nyambo fishermen concentrate their efforts mostly on fish. As does the shoebill stork, a rare swampland angler. The story of Akagera's elephants is one of conservation's earliest successes. These elephants are newcomers. Akagera's original small elephant population disappeared, but no one knows why. The last original elephant was seen in 1961. The elephants that visit Lake Ehima today come from a group of about 20 transferred to Akagera from a savanna region south of Kigali, Rwanda's capital, in 1975. By 1990, the population had more than doubled. Lake Ihima is the largest in Akagira. The biggest in Rwanda is Lake Kivu, on the Congo border. Fishing provides a basic living here too. It's also the highest lake, just below 5,000 feet. Higher still, in the hilly north of the country, the lush, cool pastures support yet another way of life. There are no cattle or fish here. Instead, plenty of fertile land rich enough to support agriculture. By farming the land around them and cultivating crops such as potatoes, sago and tobacco, the people living in the hills have been able to settle down. Their homes are built to last as long as possible. The villages are permanent enough for a local infrastructure to develop. Rough roads link them together and to the bigger towns further away. There are no roads for the wandering Bahima to follow. Far from civilization, they lead their cattle from pasture to pasture. When they stop, it's never for very long. The Bahima's ancestors were probably Neolithic people, who, when North Africa became too dry, followed the Nile south. Their Ankole cattle have equally long bloodlines. They are depicted in ancient Egyptian art. Their horns can grow to more than 8 feet, the longest of any living animal. All in all, a source of enormous pride. Vigorous grooming sweeps away dirt, but ticks must be plucked off one by one. The greatest health hazard for people comes from a far more sinister bloodsucker, the mosquito. Unless treated, the disease it carries, malaria, can kill. Remain had to help.
During several months, we always visited some remote groups, some remote families. And in the beginning, we could not take any pictures because they never allow that. So when we have seen that many of them catched a lot of diseases like malaria, we brought some medicine for them. And then we become slowly more familiar with them.
In return, the Bahima chief and his people extended the hand of friendship to Remain. They welcomed him into the very heart of their small community. Having initially been restricted to filming the herders, he was now free to film domestic life and customs. Their few possessions reflect how completely their lives are dominated by cattle. Clothes of cowhide and dozens of milk pots. Even these objects last longer than their huts, simple buildings that can be erected wherever there is good grazing, dismantled without trace when it's time to move on. Cattle provide more than skin and milk. The cow, relaxed and calm, suffers no more than a small wound, which will be packed with a dressing of mud and grasses. Blood, made into a spongy pudding, is the Bahima's staple food, along with fresh milk, some of which is turned into buttermilk and butter. Cattle provide so much more than food and clothes. To the Bahima, they meant freedom, identity, a passport to roam. While the future seemed rosy for the behemoth, far away up among the thick vegetation on the slopes of the Visoki volcano, the gorillas were already struggling. Only 600 mountain gorillas remain in the wild. Over time, the threats they face have changed. In the early 1900s, zoo collectors wiped out whole families just to capture a single infant, which often died itself from the trauma. In the past quarter century, in spite of international conservation efforts and the work of dedicated researchers like Mark Condiotti, talking here to Remain and a friend, gorillas have suffered from drastic loss of habitat, squeezed into a tiny patch of forest of only 437 square miles. The present is carefree, but the future for a newborn is bleak. But there is a more immediate danger, right in the middle of the forest. Poachers' snares. Though they're set to catch small antelope, the bamboo snares are indiscriminate. Triggered by the slightest touch, they snap shut like handcuffs on the wrists and ankles of passing gorillas. The young gorilla on the left lost his whole hand in one. So did this silverback, who has learnt to feed himself single-handed. On one extraordinary occasion, Remain and Mark came across one of the poacher's own dogs caught in a snare. They couldn't free it immediately because the gorillas had got there first. Rather than risk further injury to the dog by disturbing the gorillas, they waited to see what would happen. At first, the gorillas were tense and kept their distance. Then, overcome by curiosity, the braver ones moved in. Though anxious to free the dog, Remain knew that nothing like this had ever been filmed before. Gorillas, like other apes, are highly intelligent, as tests in captivity show. Opportunities to watch them cope with a new problem in the wild are rare.
The dog that we have seen in the trap with all the gorillas around was of course unique. We only have seen that one time, and even all the scientific people working during more than 10 or more than 15 years in the Virunga volcanoes never have seen that before. The gorillas, of course, were also, I am sure, very surprised to see a dog in that trap.
In captivity, gorillas can solve easy problems. What on earth would they make of this strange situation? Having examined the dog from various angles, the gorillas seemed to realize that the source of the problem was somehow its paw. Captive gorillas can learn to talk to humans using simple sign language. Their own communication system is rich in complex, subtle gestures we have yet to perceive, never mind translate. Were these gorillas trying to tell the dog something? Just as fascinating is how the gorillas did not react. In the face of a strange, potentially threatening situation, they didn't scream, hit the dog, or even vocalize loudly, perhaps because the dog itself remained so remarkably calm. What on earth did the gorillas make of it all? Ape intelligence is a fascinating topic, but the dog was suffering. As soon as the gorillas got bored, Mark Condiotti moved in to free it. First, though, he had to disable the death trap. Exactly what the gorillas made of it all, we'll never know. Mark had to handle the dog carefully. It had probably been trapped for some hours and was weak and terrified by its ordeal at the hands of all these primates. As Mark encouraged the dog to accept its freedom, the gorillas observed all. What did they understand? The fact that we can ask what a gorilla thinks is a sign of our own intelligence. But gorillas have evolved brains that serve them well in their world, not ours. Trapped dogs are rare in the life of a wild mountain gorilla. Finding food, by contrast, is a daily problem. And gorillas have a kind of ecological intelligence. They appear to be able to appreciate the passing of the seasons, knowing when particular foods, such as a favorite fruit, will be ready to eat. At his prime, a silverback such as Meriti is a magnificent creature, tall, dark and handsome. His superb physique is entirely down to what females look for in a mate. For a start, they want him big and burly. His main duties are, after all, to fend off other silverbacks, protect his family, and maintain harmony between them. When they are old enough, adolescent females leave the group they were born in to join a new harem. They need to be sure they pick the fittest, strongest silverback around. His looks matter too. Females prefer physical symmetry and a glossy coat, both of which are signs of health, because a top-quality father will produce strong, healthy babies. This young male has at least 12 years of growing to do before he reaches Meriti's size. A fully grown male is a gentle giant, up to 5 feet 5 tall, with an arm span of 7 feet, and tipping the scales at around 500 pounds. This mechanism of female choice means that the size difference between the sexes is greater than in any other primate. All gorillas have a huge pot belly to accommodate the long intestine needed to digest and absorb all that plant food. But the one who must eat the most is the silverback, up to 60 pounds of greens a day. Many plants have a protective coat of painful stings and sharp prickles. Rather than waste time nibbling at them one by one, gorillas learned to fold them up into a sandwich. Their sharp teeth slice the food up, like dicing vegetables on a chopping board, rather than mashing it. Their huge cranial crest anchors the massive jaw muscles needed for this. It's like living in the middle of a giant salad bowl. There's so much to eat that there's never any fighting over food, which is why youngsters have the privilege of growing up in such a peaceful community. Nothing is missing. Roots provide fiber. Young leaves contain protein and water. Infants don't begin to eat plant material until they're 6 months old. The fearsome canines are for signaling, not feeding. Breakfast over, the silverback leads his family back into the forest. They travel in single file, dominant females towards the front, those lower in the hierarchy bringing up the rear. The older gorillas, having filled their vast bellies, settle down to some serious digestion. But the youngsters can't imagine anything more boring. By playing, youngsters learn the social rules that make it possible to mix with others. It also helps them practice their physical skills. And build up muscles. Just when the future looked brighter than it had for a long time, when conservation efforts to save the last few mountain gorillas were making a difference, their mountain kingdom fell to pieces. In April 1994, the death of President Habyarimana triggered civil war in Rwanda. Suddenly the gorillas were more exposed than ever before, and Remain's 30-year love affair with Rwanda was abruptly over.
We were evacuated in 1994 when the genocide started. Of course, it was one of the hardest moments in our life because we really were considered as Rwandan people, as well by the Rwandans as by the Europeans.
Rwandans fled the violence too, in their hundreds of thousands. These people were the lucky ones. Many lost entire families in brutal attacks, lucky to survive themselves. Over the next few months, between 500,000 and 1 million people were massacred. By August, a quarter of the pre-war population had either died or fled the country, forced to live in squalid refugee camps right at the foot of the volcano.
On the Zairean side, a big part of the forest has been destroyed because of people to prepare food for cooking. They enter in the forest to find wood and they destroyed a lot of trees.
Among the refugees were the Bahima.
It's a real pity because the Bahima people before, they didn't want to accept modern life, and they always respect traditional way of living. You know, that is finished. And we can tell that it's a lost tribe for humanity. So for the Bahima people, it's impossible that they can start to live like they were doing before. It's a lost tribe. They cannot start the clock from zero like 30, 40 years before. I only can hope that peace will come back in the whole region so that Rwanda can become a real paradise like before.
Within a few short months, the Bahima's ancient way of life, which had survived intact for centuries, was obliterated. The war destroyed their identity, their community, and their traditions. One precious, unique culture was lost forever. Would the guerrillas, as feared, have suffered the same fate? The news was better than anyone dared hope. Most of the guerrillas had survived unharmed. Out of the ashes of Rwanda's tragedy, here was something to celebrate. Today, tourists are beginning to return to the Virungas to see the rare mountain gorillas, helping to boost the local economy. In a way, those who are rebuilding Rwanda into the peaceful Eden it was in Romain's time are the guerrillas themselves.